Hey guys, hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Today I'm here to tell you about a horror film I saw recently that is 100% like steps it up a gear from your average slasher or torture porn flick. It's not that at all. It's a psychological horror, and it steps it up a level from a lot of the other psychological horrors I've seen. I really thought this was a pretty bombastic film, and I'm going to tell you all about it and why it's a horror film with soul, with massive entertainment value, with fantastic themes, and why I think it's definitely something that you should go and see. Infinity Pool, directed by Brandon Cronenberg. I'd been hearing about this for a few months. I know it was really hyped up and a really popular horror film that previewed at South by Southwest. And like, I often find I can like hear about a horror film that's really captured people's imagination and people are really excited about it, or even just an indie. And then I watch it and I just think, that was not so unique or didn't really grip me in so many ways. Like, there's an example in my head right now, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to like offend the director. But yeah, like, there's just a few that don't really like hit me. Although I think are gonna have like real shock value, and then I see them and I'm like, I don't really see like what's so different about this or why they've really stepped it up a gear. So I thought that might be kind of the experience of Infinity Pool, that like I wouldn't be that shocked because I don't usually watch trailers. I like to go in cold, but I did see about half the trailer of this, and I felt I gave quite a lot away, so I didn't really expect to be like completely blown away. But when I was in there, kind of forget about like horror film or psychological thriller. It's just like a fantastic film and entertaining and gripping in so many ways, and there's so many different things and ideas and themes to latch onto. So let me paint the picture of like what I experienced and why, discuss some of the themes, and then why I think that you guys should go see it, and why I think that the script and stuff deserves like just a lot more credit than the average kind of psychological thriller. So in Venice Pool, we start in this like rustic, gorgeous kind of island. It's a fictional place. I think it's meant to be somewhere kind of Polynesian. It's filmed in Croatia, which is one of my favorite places and countries. So maybe that's why I was like, very keen on it. And you're instantly taken into that lovely kind of rustic, immersive escapism. You know how people love things kind of like The White Lotus, or there's a film with Dakota Johnson and Ralph Fiennes. Let me just get the name actually because it's a good kind of comparison, where you're just enjoying like the vibe. It's Moorish, it's umami, and you're just enjoying watching all the kind of social interactions. So that's what we get straight away. Like, the very first line of the film is you can't eat white sand, brain death. It's something like that, right? And it's just a guy mumbling to his girlfriend when she's asleep, but when they're both waking up in the morning. But like, just to have such a unique, gripping line to start off a film, just something so weird and kind of lyrical like that, I was like instantly like, okay, I'm feeling this, I like this. So the opening of the film is, this couple. You've got Alexander Skarsgård, who obviously is this super mainstream actor who is now taking all these risks, and it's just fab to see, with the Northman and just kind of everything he does. And then Cleopatra Cole, I'd never seen her in anything before. She's an Australian actress, like incredibly striking, gorgeous girl. She's playing his kind of rich wife, from like a really sort of privileged, obviously her dad's got lots of money, and that's kind of her background. She's Australian, and they're in this lovely resort in this fictional place called La Toga or La Tonka or something. But it's got that eat the rich vibe, where they're in the gorgeous resort, everything's protected, all gated in, but apparently it's really rough and violent outside, and you cannot leave the island, and that's kind of really bigged up. And basically, long story short, within the first 25 minutes, they meet another couple, which is Mia Goth and her much older kind of husband. And it's that kind of temptress, selling your soul. Oh, come with us, come spend some time with us, come outside the gates, come have a picnic with us. What could go wrong? So they go and do that. They again have, one of those really nice, lazy, hazy days. You see a real like penis straight away, because there's a bit of cheating going on, and it's just instantly juicy in that way. Just, there wouldn't have to be anything psychological or supernatural. I'm not even sure if what happens is supernatural. I like that it stays on the line where it never expresses that there's like a witch casting spells that makes everything happen, so it keeps it in quite a nice natural like realism, which I think is often like a big part of the success of a film, because just a lot of people just can't buy into things that are too magical. So we have this lazy, hazy day, and then at the end they're going to drive back, and the guy's too drunk. So Alexander Skarsgård, our main character, offers to drive the car and hits somebody and runs them over. Which that's quite a typical, oh god, no, like this mistake I made that's going to ruin my life kind of thing. I think one of my criticisms of the films would be that this crime that he commits, this manslaughter, is obviously a catalyst for so much of what happens in the film. And I think his crime could have been just like a little bit more interesting and unique. It still could have been manslaughter. I just think like, say his wife was going to get mugged and he like protected her and ended up like stabbing someone while protecting her. Just something a little bit more interesting than like a hit and run. Like you just see hit and runs so often. I kind of would have liked to have seen something a bit different. So they drive away, you know, the couple who live on the island tell them to leave it. They leave it, they go to his hotel. He wakes up the next morning and it's a nightmare. And this was enough of a horror film for me. Him and his wife are taken to like a foreign jail, and like I love that they like that is like a pure like that is some nightmare fuel, you know, like being arrested in a foreign country where like there's going to be no mercy, you don't know the rules, you don't know the laws, like you have to sign things that you don't know what they say. You're going to be treated like potentially worse than they would treat anybody else. They're going to make an example of you. Horror movie, you know. And that is happening within the first kind of half an hour. His wife's in the car hyperventilating. They're taken to this big jail with barbed wire and great big scale buildings, and like that was enough for me. I was having a heart attack too, and it was terrifying. Just in that realistic way of, you know, that nightmare situation that all of us like could potentially get into. But hopefully we'll not never drive drunk. Just don't drive, literally. It's not worth the risk. Just do not drive. So we have all this horror and scariness, and we have this terrifying, quite sexy foreign kind of diplomat, foreign kind of like police chief who comes in and sits Alexander Skarsgård down, and he's got the contract for him to sign. You're thinking, oh my god, what's going to happen? And this is where the film kind of flips into, you know, another gear and gets, you know, more twisted. And I wish I hadn't seen the trailer, because I saw this in the trailer even though it wasn't exactly clear what it meant, but it pretty much means what it says on the tin, is that in this country, to not deter tourists, they have a policy where any manslaughter, murder, the punishment's death, and that goes for tourists as well. But to not deter them, what they can do is create a double of you, and your double will be real. It's not a doll, it's a clone, it's a real living sentient being, and he's going to have your memories. So it's when that double wakes up, he's going to feel like you do waking up, except he is the one that's taken and executed. And that's exactly what plays out. And there's another terrifying sort of transformation scene where, you know, he has this horrible gum shield put in, you know, when you have your gum shield fitted for like lacrosse at school, and his hand's printed, and then he's put in this chamber and it starts to fill up with some liquid, some like blue liquid. And I was like, oh my god, like I can just feel that. Can you imagine like all that going in your throat and your nose? You feel it filling. And I thought we were going to see that. And again, it was just incredibly horrifying, visceral scene. Luckily, kind of it cuts off so you don't see him like gagging and drowning and like spurting in some like horrific liquid. So I was kind of glad that we didn't see it like too horribly. But again, just another like incredibly dynamic, imaginative scene. And then what plays out next is exactly what it says on the tin. It's him and his wife go sit there and watch his double, who is like a real living human, be stabbed by the son of the guy that he accidentally ran over. After that, he's given a box of ashes to keep, and he's allowed to go free into the night, back to the hotel. And I still, at this point, maybe I was being a bit slow, wasn't sure like what the film was going to be about and what the point was like of that double, what the whole like moral theme was. Yeah, I don't know why, I just kind of hadn't like twigged it yet. I was just kind of immersed in the whole thing. What happens is he gets back, his passport's not there, and his wife is like, she's the one thinking like logically how like we would think like, oh my god, we just absolutely need to get off this island. He's a little bit more chill, he's been a little bit more enticed by what he's watched, a little bit less freaked out. So he's not freaking out that he hasn't got his passport. And then Mia Goth, the kind of sexy, mysterious wife that was seducing him and made him kind of, you know, make the mistake of fleeing anyway, finds him again in the hotel lobby and is basically like, come with us, come with my husband and my kind of crew. And that's what we get into, you know, a massive part of what this film is about. It's about, you know, the rich being able to get away with anything they want and living with no consequences. And it's this incredibly dystopian idea where you could have, you know, rich evil people who just want to play and mess with people's lives and don't think that like people who have less money than them, who come from a different class, they think they don't have any value, and they can just come to the island, do whatever they want and have no consequences, because the consequences will happen to their double. Even though it's such a fantastic psychological mirror image there as well, it is your double, it's you, like you're doing it to you, like you're making you suffer, and somebody wakes up as you, literally, like it's like you waking up and they go through the death that like you were about to go through. It's just that you managed to like get away with it. And they even say, what if they swap you? So what if the person we're looking at now is actually the double that was born that day, and has it been able to just go free? And then, you know, the real you had to go and suffer. And it's like, if the real you was gonna make the double suffer anyway, then do they even deserve like to be happy? And it's just this whole, I just love like the moral complex questions like that, you know, of, you know, like if you were given the chance to get away with anything, would you? And then like, you know, if you make someone else suffer for your crime, like, do you really care if it means you get to be happy even if it happens to you? And then if you're going to do that, what do you then at the end of the day deserve if you're making other people suffer for your crime, or even making your double suffer for your crime? So all that's like fascinating psychologically, but then just on a realism level, there's something else super interesting going on. As he hooks up with all these other people, these rich people on the island who aren't, you know, native Latogan people, except for his wife, who is the only one who's freaked out, staying in his hotel room. And they've all just gone a bit bananas, where they're like, we can get away with anything, so let's get away with anything. So they are then crashing the house of the guy who came up with the doubling idea, sneaking in, stealing masks, stealing artifacts, trashing, running around with guns, like being a hooligans. It's like the purge, and they're like allowed to do it. And I'm watching this and I'm still in my mind of like, I do not want to like be in that foreign jail. And I was like, oh my God, what are they doing? How can they take such a risk? And what are they thinking? They're being so stupid right now. They think they can get away with anything. But what is going to happen when the sexy foreign police chief like comes and gets them, and it's just going to get worse and worse for them? And I was thinking, like, are they going to kind of make them into some kind of like malformed, horrible double version of themselves, you know, do something with the doubling that kind of really makes them suffer? And there were just so many angles that could go in that direction. I was just kind of thrilled thinking of like where it was going to go and what could happen, and just kind of terrified like of what would happen next. And it was just so juicy. I mean, it could be like a 6-part TV series of like what they get up to on that island. And so then maybe another criticism I would have is that you get that suggestion, but then that storyline does not develop, and the storyline changes kind of again when there's a fantastic sequence. Obviously this is all kind of spoilers. They say they're going to get the police chief and like beat him up. So Alexander Skarsgård is really enjoying beating up the police chief, and they've got a pillowcase over his head, and he's really enjoying just getting away with anything. He's becoming his like primal, carnal, like terrible self. And then they take the pillowcase off, and it's him. And it's a double of him that was like created by his new friends purely just to like mess with him. And it's such a great performance, because you can see in the double's eyes, it's Alexander Skarsgård playing that he's like, oh my God, what is happening to me? And at that point I was like, is that the original guy, the one we watched in the beginning? And this is kind of an evil double that's got him, and he's just being suffered and like being tortured, you know? And that's when I got like really panicky, like OCD. I was kind of like, oh my God, this film, like, is this just going to be about constantly like creating like doubles of yourself, and it's just like constant like gimp versions of yourself that can just like suffer, and because they aren't like the real you, and they're not like, they haven't taken the place of like, you know, the actual Alexander Skarsgård in the world, they can just be treated like meat, and like anything can happen to them, and there's no laws to protect them, you know, there's nothing. It's literally just, you know, it's an object, as a gimp kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, how is it she having to like reassure myself, like come up with like, I was like, no, a double, if it's created, it can only last like 24 hours, which like isn't in the film. And I just like created that in my own head. I was like, no, every double only lasts 24 hours, like they don't have to suffer. And I was just so intrigued about what will the consequences be like if you do that to yourself, and what do you deserve if you were going to do that to yourself, and do you deserve to be protected in any way? Just like a complete like Groundhog Day, like catch-22 like scenario, that I was like loving the whole psychological element of that then, even though the foreign like diplomacy element had kind of like left the film at that point. So I kind of wanted to see like more of that. And then it gets to, once he's seen his double, he really realizes like just how much kind of danger he's in, and just how kind of messed up this is. And then he gets his passport back, and it's the rich friends who have it, and I think he kind of knew that the whole time anyway. And he's on his way to the airport, he's going up up the mountain road, and you're kind of thinking, yes, you know, good idea, and kind of thinking that he's going to get away. He's all panicky, and then that's when we just get into like a sort of crazy sequence that I think will be part of why people love this film, and part of why Mia Goth has been like such a popular and successful actress, and being so like bigged up in this film, because she comes along with this crazy performance, completely like, she's like this sweet seductress, and I really thought they had a real romance. I was kind of fully tricked and into it. And then you learn in this sequence that she just loves playing with people and messing with people. She wasn't actually interested in him, and didn't, he was an author, she hadn't read his book before and all of that. And she just becomes this brutal bully, and she just has this mad performance of this like weird, you know, like kind of child, like screaming his name, being like, Jamesy, James. If you've seen the film, you know, Jamesy, Jamesy, trying to get him to come out of the bus and rejoin her gang. She's got a gun, and she's just having this like, you know, tantrum, like playing up this like pathetic, like sexy tantrum, just knowing she can get away with anything. She's just like a child, like who wants as many lollipops as possible, and she's just awful in that moment. Like, you hate her, but as a villain, it's like a completely unique villain, and it's just kind of terrifying that she can get away with anything. And again, I really liked some of the writing, because often I just find some films that there's just no lines that I find particularly like unique or interesting. I just feel like it's something anyone could write, like they don't put like effort in with the lines, but she has some really interesting lines there about like, he's a coward who would feed his mother horse meat, or something kind of ridiculous. So Brandon Cronenberg, I know he's David Cronenberg's son. I think I've seen like one of his films a long time ago, where he's like always been into the horror, and I kind of thought he was a bit more of like, oh, you know, my dad does horror, so I like a bit of gore too, I like a bit of fucked upness too, and that was kind of all he was about. And with this film, I think he really has got such an imagination, such cool themes, like fantastic direction, like great way with words, like you know, I'm massively impressed, you know, and I think he fully deserves like his position in the industry, and I kind of can't wait to see what he does next. So I have kind of given you all of the sexy spicy highlights, and so I'm just going to get to the ending as well. And yeah, it's kind of my, again, only like my third criticism or fourth criticism. It does happen so often that a film is doing so much, and then the end can just be like a bit simple, like, you know, so they do the double thing again and bring out like another double of his, or it's a double they're kind of keeping, and then full kind of spoiler territory is that he has to kill his double to become the most primal version of himself. We'd already seen quite a lot of that, and he already was the primal version of himself, and we already had the horror of the fact that he'd kind of tortured his own double, and I just think there was psychologically way more you could do. It's kind of why like I love TV so much, because if it was a series, that could go on for like 4 episodes and go in so many different angles, and instead it's kind of like he has to kill his double to like survive, and then it's kind of all wrapped up that the rich people were like just playing a game, just having a laugh, just messing with people's lives for fun, and then they go to the airport and they're like really normal, literally talking about like the gardening that they're going to be doing when they get back home. Mia Goth, who he's had this insane relationship with, is then just completely normal, and it's like, oh, I'll see you next year, and it's just something she does to like, you know, get over like the boredom of her life. And it's still about like how they're playing with people, you know, like puppeteering people, just because they can, but it just wraps up kind of basically, you kind of know from the first moment he watches his double be killed, he's got this grin on his face, he's going to be going down on like a dark path, and like there's so many ways that you could have done it where you think he turned good and then he hadn't, you know, or he's about, because he's been introduced to this, he's about to take it to like a whole other level, and he does, and you kind of know he's at the airport, like he doesn't get on the plane, like, so you know that that's where it's going. And I would have loved to have seen that delivered in like a more shocking way, more surprising way, something really dynamic, something we hadn't seen before. And the final shot is just that he basically stays on the island, it's all raining on him, it's like out of season, and there's this sinister feeling, oh my god, so this is who he's become, it's not just a holiday for him, what's gonna happen next? So it was cool, but I think ending it with your main character who's initiated into the whole selling the soul thing, I love it, such a unique way of the selling soul thing. So he sells his soul, and then at the end, like, oh, he's happy and he doesn't want to give his soul back, and now maybe he'll take a load of souls, like we've seen that a lot, and so it just, could have been delivered like, not even like, it's not that it wasn't delivered in a good way, just with like more oomph. Like we just want to see more of it. It's one of those times when like there was so much good stuff, I just like didn't want it to be like over, literally, you know. Could be more surprising and sinister and all of that. What's kind of cool is that you are not sure if this is the double or if this is the original guy. You like, you know, you actually do not know. And yeah, I love something, a film where characters kind of get to push their boundaries, and I love kind of something where there's no consequences, except maybe there is. So it ticked all those boxes, but it delivers it in this like fantastic, you know, rustic, immersive, idyllic way, mixed with the horror of the foreign diplomacy thing, and then all this debauchery and sexual kind of craziness and imagery. There's some real gory imagery, which I'm not like mad about that, but it's kind of, you know, it was delivered well. It kind of worked in the story. I could have like taken or leaving, like there's some gross things of like nipples like foaming and stuff. I could have like taken that or left it. I don't really mind either way, but I think for some people in a horror, they really want to see things like that. So it's another reason why I'd kind of massively hype it up, you know. In terms of some of the super popular horrors over the past few years, I say like Hereditary and Midsummer have been like really like up there, like really like capture people's imagination. And this one for me, because I do like a bit of debauchery, this one for me like knocks those out of the park. Because hey guys, the video cut out there, that's why there's been a little costume change, but you can never go wrong with a costume change. So I just wanted to say that, yeah, the kind of top two horror films that I think have had so much hype in the past few years is Midsummer and Hereditary. They've really kind of like stepped up the genre and been incredibly popular, and I just want to say Infinity Pool I think is kind of on a par with them, and I personally actually prefer it, probably just because I love a bit of debauchery, but also I think just the human themes in this for me actually elevate it and make it like an incredibly exciting horror film and film. It works as a standalone film. The film I was talking about earlier with Dakota Johnson and Ralph Fiennes is called A Bigger Splash, and it's this idyllic, rustic, kind of social, slow build, slow burn film, and that's what you get for the first half an hour of this film before it twists and flips on its head. So if you like that kind of style of film, you're just getting so much in one, you know. You're getting that selling soul Faustian bargain idea, but for some reason it does feel unique. It doesn't feel like cliche, even though obviously that's been like the core of so many horror films. To me, this, you know, manages to give it like a little extra oomph and just, you know, does a little bit more so it isn't overrated or overhyped. I'd love to know what you guys think, so let me know and like leave your comments, because I'm sure it's not for everybody, and I'm sure there's going to be loads of debate about it. Literally within the first 4 minutes or something of watching this film, a guy in the cinema I was in like stood up and left. I'd love to know, honestly. I wanted to come out of the cinema and like find him. I was hoping I was still able to like find him, because I was like dying to know. I was like, why did you leave? Like, what could have happened in the first 4 minutes that made you want to leave? He left at this moment where you see these people in masks, but it's not clear at first that they are in masks. So for a minute it looks kind of like a disfigurement. So I don't know if maybe he was like offended by that or something, because it does feel like that's almost going to become a theme, that there's going to be this like warped, you know, disfigurement, kind of twisted mutilation idea, what with the whole like doubling cloning thing, which is obviously like very creepy and very, you know, like impactful, visceral. So maybe that's why, but I don't even know, because like as he was getting up and putting his scarf on, then like it was clearly a mask that people were wearing. So like I so want to know. But if someone can walk out in the first 4 minutes, then I guess that could happen to you too, or you could be offended. But knowing you horror lovers, you guys probably want it to go even further. So yeah, just let me know kind of what you think of this and where you would rank it. And I would just say, like, you know, for me, I think there are a lot of ways this could be better, but I often do have to just judge a film on how much I enjoy it as I'm sitting in the cinema moment to moment, like how much I enjoy the experience, even if after I leave I like think they could have pushed it more. So I have to give it an 8 or a 9. My criticism would be, make it a TV series so we can have more of this, so we can indulge in this exciting world and these crazy themes more, you know. So Infinity Pool, the TV show, I'm waiting for you. And yeah, big up Infinity Pool, big up Brandon Cronenberg, Alexander Skarsgård, Mia Goth with all her crazy choices, and I can't wait to review something ultra even crazier soon. So I'll see you guys soon for something else wild. Have a good day.